I'm back. Well, what have we got today? Well, some while back I bought basically a Malmsteen Strat. You know what them are. They're not that cheap either. But I didn't buy the whole thing, the real deal. The head, the tail, the whole thing, you know. I didn't do that. What I bought was just the body. And at the time, I was thinking about what I should do with that, and should I go and find the Malmsteen neck, or should I go and find an ordinary neck? Because you know the Malmsteen neck could be a bit of a problem. Let's get this thing out and show you what I did and how we're going to change it today. So here it is, a Malmsteen Strat. What were the difference? And what I can tell you right off about this unit is this is actually an untouched or unfettered Malmsteen body. Well, actually it's the complete assembly less the neck. Oh, what about the neck? Surely you put a Malmsteen one on. Well, at the time I didn't. And part of the reason for that was that a Malmsteen neck is entirely aggravation if you're not very good at playing that sort of thing. And you've only got to touch the thing very lightly, and you can very easily, on a Malmsteen neck, throw the thing out of tune. Very easily. So a lot of players, they just don't get it, or don't like it, or don't this, or don't that. No, I don't want one of them type of thing. And that's a bit of a waste. That's a bit of a shortcoming, in my opinion, unless you're a Malmsteen. You're not one of them, are you? Well, it's highly likely you're not one of them. Well, I'm not one of them either, but it doesn't stop me wanting this body with these pickups and this setup being as part of my, well, my ammunition. You know, it fires bullets in effect, doesn't it? But that neck. So at the time I opted to buy a sort of early 70s neck. Well, it wasn't early 70s, a reissue type of thing, and fit it on as a standard neck. I thought that made sense. And certainly in the video at the time, when I played it and did all the other stuff, it did make sense. But I've been thinking about this of more recent times, and I think that could have been a mistake. But not a mistake as far as the Malmsteen neck. That's a bit of a problem. Let's take a look at this neck here first, just quickly, of what I fitted, and then I can show you how we move forward. And I think it's a potentially good opportunity for you to consider this, else I wouldn't make the video. Well, here we are, the Fender Strat neck that I fitted to the Malmsteen guitar. And well, it's not exactly the correct year, you know. Normally they have a bullet up here on the Malmsteen, you know, that bullet silver looking thing for adjusting the neck. Well, on this, it's that type. You will have seen it, but it's still a Fender Strat. It's still a real deal, and it's an American neck, by the way. It's a pretty nice neck overall, and it was bought brand new off really the same sort of people, the same company, which was StratosphereParts.com. And they're good at breaking down guitars and selling the parts off. Okay, so you should have some idea of where we're at. A Malmsteen Strat. In fact, this has got the YJM pickups on, the latest. So it's a current body. It's not really that old. But it's got a standard neck, just like you saw. So where do we go from here? It's either Malmsteen or no Malmsteen, right? Well, actually, that's not true. There are other paths we could have taken, or I could have taken at the time. And I think you should consider it too. If you're somebody who doesn't really want that hyper deep scalloping all the way down to the first fret, I might add, on a Malmsteen neck, what the hell do you do? Well, what you do is you go and find an alternative. Let me flip this one out. Well, here's the alternative. Well, it looks sort of similar. Let's get this off. Well, it looks like a Fender neck, doesn't it? Doesn't it? It's got them old-fashioned Fender things on it. So I guess it could be a good idea. But just before we flip that over, let's just have a quick chat about Malmsteen and scallop necks. Now, many of you guys will know straight off that, well, Malmsteen, he was a fanatic in the early, well, in the 70s, 80s, toward the end of the 70s, 80s, well, probably before. I don't know the entire history of him, but I remember seeing him for the first time and thinking, how does he do that? Well, I can't do it. Probably you can't do it. You may be not wanting to do it because it is a particular style, you know, neoclassical style. But I got thinking about, well, where did Malmsteen get all this stuff from? And where he got it from was a guy named Ritchie Blackmore. You heard of him? What, you haven't? You're not some sort of snowflake. I mean that in a nice way. Well, Ritchie Blackmore was from Deep Purple and later other bands like Rainbow and all sorts of connotations over the years. In fact, he's still playing today, I believe, but in a different way. In any case, it doesn't really matter. What you've got to do is you've got to go back, all the way back, dun, 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 year after year, until you find Ritchie Blackmore and you watch Yngwie Malmsteen watching him and learning. And Yngwie's got his records and he's putting this just like you do today with whoever you like. And one of the things Yngwie picked up on was that Ritchie Blackmore, this is a Ritchie Blackmore neck, had scalloping on his neck. No, not this neck, that neck. So let's go and take a look at a Ritchie Blackmore scallop neck. And it's not what you think it is, probably, if you've never seen one, and you may well not have seen one. They're not that common. Yeah, so it's not quite what you think. So let's bring the camera in and have a closer look. Well, I know. You first thing you're going to tell me is, that's one of them cheap Mexican necks. And I knew you'd say that somehow. Oh, I've got the pointer, which some guys tell me I'm dangerous with, so be careful or else I'll, it could poke your eyes out through the camera. In any case, let's come back to this. So it's a Mexican hacked apart neck, MX, but to be honest, they're probably all Mexican necks and some are shipped to Corona and some of them aren't. Yeah, and there it is. So that's the story on that. Let's carry on down this neck and we'll get to the important bits in a minute. But I just want to show you these that are on this neck because I'm going to leave them on. Because my guess is that when Yngwie was doing his thing all them years ago, when he first started, these will be the type of tuners that he had on his neck. I don't doubt it at all, because that's all that was around really, or the really old ones. So these are, well, probably era correct, or as near as matters. It doesn't really matter, does it? What matters is the overall neck and its features. Now, I'd describe this neck, to be honest, it's like it's like a 60s neck, but clearly it isn't 60s, is it? It's nearer 70s, I guess. Mid-60s, 67 and onwards, something like that. I'm not sure the exact dates, but you'll get the idea. And it's got its skunk stripe in the back, say that when you've had a pint. Skunk stripe in the back for the truss rod, and there's part of the truss rod at the bottom. So if we look down here, what you've actually got is you've got the 1970s type of finishing on the bottom of the neck. That doesn't matter, by the way, even though we're fitting it in a slightly different style body and neck pocket. It's got 4 screws, which are not the same as the Malmsteen ones. The Malmsteen one's got inserts in, but to be honest, the neck that's fitted is similar to this. Similar. It's got a serial number, it's dated, It's genuine Fender. What we got down the end here? Whatever you can see down the end, if you can see anything, I guess. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Doesn't really matter. But the important bit is down this end. So I think the best way is if we start here and move that away, down the neck, but we'll cover it as we go. Because there's a few things that are not immediately obvious unless you've had one of these actually in your hands. How many of you done that? Not that many. Maybe. Okay, well, it's signed, well, transferred by Ritchie Blackmore. There it is. It's a Fender Stratocaster, as you know. It's got two of these, which is era correct. It's all era correct. There's the bullet. Now, it doesn't have a Malmsteen brass nut. But don't worry, I've got one. Whether I fit that now or later is another story. But as we come down here, we can start looking at these edges. The important bit. Now let's take a look at these edges. These fret sections. You can see quite clearly that it's been shaved down. You see that? And each one of them is shaved down. So I'm just going to slide this along, and we should take a look at the neck as we go. And you can see them here all the way along. And you'll notice that as we go further down the neck, they get deeper. And when we get to the 12th fret, which is just about coming up here, they start to get very deep. In fact, by the time you get down to this end of the neck, they're basically as Malmsteens are. You can see that. A very different sort of scallop than back here. If you can see that. These here are quite shallow, but they are pronounced enough for you to know. Make no mistake. So let's go back down. You get that? But this neck has a secret. And it's a secret that, well, to be honest, until I actually held this in my hand, I didn't know about. Oh, Tony, you didn't know? No, I didn't know. And I'm going to let you into the secret right now. Even if you do know, it doesn't matter. It's all part and parcel of the video. And for every guy that does know, there's probably about 2,000 that don't. So I'm going to turn the neck around so we can have a look at the other side. Okay, well, here we are at the other side. And it looks just as, well, dug out this side as it does that side. As it did that side, should I say. You can see quite clearly it's quite extensive. From this 12th fret, just there, all the way to the end, it's quite substantial. You see them scallops. But here's something to notice. There's the 12th fret. Now let's start working backwards this way from the 12th fret. And if you notice something, the scalloping by about there, it's gone. Look at this edge. Take a real good look at this edge, because there is no scalloping down this side of the neck. I hope you can see that, guys, because this is an important aspect that, well, I haven't really heard many people talk about. So, summing it up, you've got one side down this bottom end that's got a light scalloping, and the other side that's got no scalloping. So it's a sort of, well, convex type of sort of neck design. And as we go down, you'll see it. It'll become immediately obvious when we reach the 12th fret. You can see the far side. It's quite deep, and this side is actually 0. But as soon as we reach the 12th fret, in they come. You can see them there. And they take a really sharp dive, really pretty quickly, from the 12th fret onwards. And like I said, by the time you get to here, down the end, well, they're as deep this side as they are the other side, which is quite awesome. Now then, are you a Malmsteen nut? Well, if you are, there's the nut to change. And they're not that difficult to do really, as long as you're just careful. But of course, you've got to have the real deal to do it with, haven't you? You've got to have a Malmsteen nut. And there it is. It's exactly the right sort of width. Whether the height's right and things like that, you got to look at that. It looks slightly high to me, but I mean, it's like everything. If you're familiar with fitting this, or familiar with fitting one of these types of nuts, it might not be too hard for you. I think I will do this, but I'm not going to do it right now. I'll maybe do this as a exercise later on, because I do want to get the video out and online so people watch it, you know. It's no use me sitting here editing for weeks on end, is it? It's not rocket science for me to do that. And maybe I'll do that in another video. Well, chances are I will. So for now, we're going to go with the Ritchie Blackmore nut that it came with, and Malmsteen nut. No, not you. The Malmsteen nut's going to go separate. So let's get that clear right off for now. Okay, so where are we now? Well, we're all ready to fit this fabulous Ritchie Blackmore neck onto the Malmsteen Strat, and I don't envisage too much trouble. Obviously, you've got to check the neck out and things like that. And I might run through quickly as I do it, what I cover and what I don't. But in either case, whether I cover that or not, it's all about the Ritchie Blackmore neck on a Malmsteen Strat. I haven't seen anybody do this, by the way, on the whole of internet world, anywhere. Well, they're not scared, are they? Oh, I got it. They didn't get a free guitar. Oh. So here we are, the Malmsteen Strat. It's all strung up, ready to be roasted, but I'm going to take the strings off and then we'll take a closer look at the neck. Well, there it is with the strings off. Let me get this thing back out. It's got one of those back plates on where you've got to use the tremolo to get the damn strings out. Not a good idea, but I suppose it's era correct. So if we flip this guitar over now, what we've got is the usual sort of thing on this one. So I'm going to screw it off now. Now listen, it's not rocket science to get this thing apart. It just screws apart. Really, pretty easy. And those are the bolts out. Well, they will be in a second. That's it. How hard was that? Let's put that over there. We'll need it later. And if we get the guitar, you'll find the neck will just literally, well, there you go. It lifted out. It's a Fender fit. So what have we got? Well, let's take a look. So here we are. And although the sort of Malmsteen Strat is very different generally, it's not very different here where it matters. In fact, if we bring it around a bit, it's basically, it's got a few bits in it from the factory still. Fancy that. Yeah, you can see that this one, well, maybe you can't. It looks like week 20, 2019. Yeah, something like that. Doesn't really matter. But there it is. And I know that should we be able to take this neck and put it straight on? Well, we should. Yeah, it does look like it's going to fit, doesn't it? It's not very tight in there, by the way. And I think Fender ones, well, you can see that. You can see all the sort of play that's going on. Now, whether you could say to me, you could say, oh, yeah, that's because it's a Mexican neck, you know, and it's this and it's that and it's the other. And what I'd say to you is I don't think it's anything to do with that at all. I think that's just the design and the way it is. It's just, you know, it's what you get. So I'm going to fit the neck on here. And if I've got anything to show you as I screw my 4 screws in, then I will. And if not, you'll see it when it's been fitted in a moment. Okay, well, the only thing really worth talking about is I did put a little bit of grease on the 4 screws before I fitted them in there. Not too difficult to just put them into the holes on the neck with a little matchstick, and off it went. all together. There was slight misalignment of the holes here, these top two, but that's only because I put them in last. Well, this is where we're at so far, and yeah, it looks pretty similarly straight along that edge. Well, not by much, but I can adjust that later if I need to. Now, I don't know how well you can see that, but I want you to try and relate to this straight edge, because that is a straight edge. And you'll notice that the neck is perpendicular or equal to that edge all the way down. If yours runs off, you have to line your neck so that it's straight with that edge, because that edge is really, that's one of the important points in getting your neck right. And if I swing it round a bit further, you can see this side, that it's pretty much spot on all the way down that. And if yours is different, well, you might have to need to align it up a bit later on. But that's the way this one is. I just thought I'd show you that. It's likely that this neck will have been levelled actually by Fender. Might be some work to do on it, there might not. We'll see presently. Oh, and just before I do go back up, I do have a certificate of authenticity for the guitar. Yeah. And somewhere I've even got the neck plate, but I didn't bother fit that. I just fitted a standard neck plate on this one. Yes, I bought off Stratosphere Parts for a while. And one of the things I like, as you saw with that certificate of authenticity, is they do actually supply you with the COA and the neck plate and the this and the that. Whatever it comes with, I guess. And there's not that many that do that these days. They try and sell this off or sell that off. Well, here we are. And actually straight away, it's very different to play, even without strings, than what you might imagine. Now at this point, if you wanted to fit that Malmsteen nut, this would be the point you'd do it. But I'm going to put this down because it weighs a ton, and I'm going to get on with fitting the strings and just checking it out. Yeah, and we'll be able to take a quick look, and we'll be able to hear it getting played as well. I want to raise one more point on this neck before we go any further. I've had two Malmsteen Strats over the years, and needless to say, I've sold them both, and it was to do with the, the overly exuberant, scallops. But one thing I did notice, I had a rosewood, and I also had a maple at a different time. And what I remember specifically on the maple, was that it had got this really thick poly coat over the fretboard. Now I could be wrong, but I think that the rosewood version had it as well. On this one, it's just plain rosewood. There's no finish on this neck. It's been sanded down, all very nice I might add, and the frets look really shiny, like they've had all the work done, which I think they have. But there's no finish on it, and if you wanted to finish it, it'd be in the previous stage. You could put a coat over the top of that. One of the things I might have done, I didn't, but I might have, would have been to put a matte finish over that. And then you don't really see it, but it does protect the board a little bit. Not that it really matters so much on this. It's going to be, it's going to be fine anyway. Strong wearing, hard wearing, should I say, is rosewood. Yeah. So I'm going to get some strings out now, and we'll get her strung up just like a chicken for Christmas. Now, by the way, I'm using Ernie Ball Super Slinky 9-42s. Why? Well, because it's my guitar, and these are the ones I like. So 9-42s it is. I think Malmsteen's even up to 8s, or something ridiculous. Maybe he isn't. Don't tell me, I don't want to know. So 9-42s again on. Okay, well what I want you to take a look at now is have a look down the edge of this neck, both sides, and you can see that the strings are pretty much positioned where they should be, and that is equal distance from the edge on either side, and that shows that we aligned the neck up properly when we were talking about that earlier on. Well, I did actually check this little section earlier just for your own information, and one of the things I wanted to do was to just check the the sort of bend in the neck, whether it's back, forwards, or whatever it is. And I put it on here and got a capo and just put that over the first fret. And I've got these things called feeler gauges, which most people know what they're, well, maybe some don't. You know how it goes these days. And I like to look for a sort of 8th thou, 7th thou, 8th thou. I think there's an 8 in here. Yeah, and what you do is you take this at something like the 12th fret and hold these strings down. And then just come along to the sort of 7th fret, or 6th or 7th fret, and just feel under there. And those are just about right. I can just feel them catching. So the actual rake of the neck and the bend of the neck is about right. It doesn't really need any extra work by me. And because it's a neck that's come from Fender and the rest of it, I know they can bend and things like that, but this one actually, I haven't actually adjusted anything to do with the truss rod. So you get what you see what you get, and that's life. Well, by the way, I've actually already done all this work, and it's tuned in, and it's all the rest of it's been done. The intonation's been done and all the rest. I'll just show you quickly something to do with the intonation, then we can get on, can't we? Okay, well, one of the things I've learned with the intonation thing, I used to sit the guitar flat on a bench, do the tuning, intonation, heights and all the rest of it with it sitting flat. But what I learned about the intonation thing is that if you do it when you're sitting flat, like that with the guitar, when you pick it up, it's wrong. Really weird, but that's how it works. So if you can see that thing behind us, you might be able to. You might be able to. And if you can see that, well, there's an E, and there's an E, pressed down at the 12th fret, and there's an A, and there's an A, and there's a D, and there's a D, and there's a G, and there's a G, there's a B, just, and there's an E. Oh. Yeah, well, it's very, very near. So I'm not going to spend any more time on it, except that just to say that, you know, if you've got a string that's flat, move the bridge that way towards the top of the neck. Then you retune again and have another go until it gets right. And what should happen is, for each open string, it should be the same on the 12th fret if you just touch it lightly, or you could do that stuff. Yeah, so that's the intonation. It's not rocket science anywhere. And yeah, what more can I say? I've got a really good action down here. I wouldn't call it perfect, but it's very good. It's very good. Yeah, it's all there. It's all nice. It's very nice. Just to a thing like that, you know when it's right. It feels right, and it is right. It just is. And of course, with pickups like this, well, there you have it. I mean, there it is fitted. Fits perfectly, by the way. There's no faffing around. Well, there's a tiny little faffing around. The screws weren't exactly in the right place, but they sort of pulled themselves where they need to be. So I'm not too worried about that. I did look closer at that and it's fine. The neck's straight, the intonation's good. The actual amount of string height from the nut's fine. It's good down here. Everything works, it's all good. And it feels right, which is most important. But it does feel like a sort of 60s neck rather than a sort of 70s neck. It doesn't bother me at all, and neither does the big headstock down there. None of that bothers me, because that's what Malmsteen's like. And it doesn't really matter whether Malmsteen's like that, because so is the other guy. Yeah, Ritchie Blackmore is no slouch, is he? So what I would say is, let's sum up. Is this for you? Is this something that would work for you? Well, the first thing in this summing up, I would say, because I've had this a while, this guitar, I would say unless these YJM pickups are for you, then don't do it, because these YJM pickups really are different than your average Strat. They're even more stratified to me than they are just a regular Strat guitar. It's sort of Strat times 2, and I don't mean in distortion, because it's not like a distortion, it's like a, well, it's that tone that you know you can get when you're on this pickup here. And yeah, there's nothing like it. It's a very woody type of type of thing. How'd you go? By the way, while we're on price, you've got to bear in mind, I couldn't find one of these in England. A Ritchie Blackmore Strat neck is liquid gold. You wouldn't find one, but you can find them in the States. Problem is, you've got the shipping, the tax, the this, the that, all them other things that go with it. And it makes this neck probably about £400 or £430. So it's not a cheap neck. There again, it is a brand new neck, and here's, damn it, brand new. Just a couple of months old, actually. Then there's the scalloping. We always come back to it, don't we? Is the scalloping going to be good for you? Or is it not going to be good for you? Is it going to hinder your playing rather than help your playing? It is an acquired taste, but the way I looked at it, seriously, I didn't just buy this neck for you to watch. I bought this neck for me to play. I wanted something a little bit different, but not to the Malmsteen level. I could have bought a Malmsteen neck. By the way, they were a few $100s dearer than this one. I look at it this way: if you buy a neck like that and you don't like it, I don't think you're going to have any trouble selling it, really, at all. So how would I give it a score? What score would I give this thing? Well, if you noticed, it basically just fitted straight on the guitar, because they're both Fender components, and strangely enough, this guitar is supposed to have a scallop neck, so nothing's out of place. It's all good, and I like something that just goes together like that, because if it goes together like that for me, it'll do that for you too. Remember, I'm just an ordinary guy, bought the bits, probably like you, put it together, and hey presto. So I'd give this about a score out of 10. I'd give it currently about an 8 out of 10, because I haven't really played it much yet. I've played it a little bit, but not much. So about an 8 out of 10 for everything, considering the complexity of fitting it and the setting up and all that stuff, you know. As far as the neck itself's concerned, it's fine. But I was most surprised that the actual fretboard has no finish on it. And you've also got one more thing on that neck. You've got that MX at the front, Mexican. Now some guys wouldn't touch that neck with a barge pole. They'd say, oh, it's Mexican, it's not a USA neck. You know, it's not a US Fender neck. Well, they basically all come from the same place. And as far as I'm concerned, to be honest, if it said US on the back or MX on the back on this neck, it wouldn't make any difference. It's just as good. It's just the same. The Ritchie Blackmore logo, well, who cares? The fact that it's MX, who cares? The price is right, it looks right, it certainly plays different. So 8 out of 10 is good. It's actually a good score. Now I've said for this one almost everything I can say. I'm going to take the other neck, by the way, and put that on another guitar where the neck that's on it isn't quite as good as that one. That's a pretty good neck over there. Yeah, and that's it really. Don't forget to visit tonymckenziecom if you get a chance. Links are all down in the text, remember, and I might link to other features that show you how to fit the neck better and things like that, stuff like that. Hope you enjoyed this one. It's a nice little short review, and I've got, where is it? Oh, it's over there. I've got this Mesa Boogie dual rectifier multi-watt sitting on the floor, ready for, well, maybe the next review or maybe one after that, something like that. So that's all interesting too, yeah. I've got a few little bits and pieces coming up as well, a bit like this thing. I mean, it doesn't cost you a fortune, but it's a good interesting subject. I hope you agree with that, because I've never seen anybody else do that review ever. Never seen it. So until next time, playing's coming up now. Get out of here. Okay, well, here we are in the studio, and I've got the Malmsteen Strat with the Ritchie Blackmore neck stuck on the end of it. Now listen, you're not going to get any Ritchie Blackmore out of me, and certainly no Malmsteen. But that's not the point. The point is, what I wanted to get was a sort of hybrid rather than just a straightforward neck like any other Strat, but with really weird pickups on. And that applies to Ritchie Blackmore and the Malmsteen Strat. Or a combination between the, well, the finger mangling Malmsteen neck that a lot of guys would never play. This one's sort of, and I mean sort of, and in the middle. It's a bit weird. You've seen it on the earlier piece of the video where this top section is, well, nigh on normal. But what's it like to play? I mean, these are the things. So what I'm going to do is just zoom in a bit closer and let you have a look at the neck, just as I strum a few chords. And by the way, it's just clean. You get the idea. So as I sit here, I mean, if you just strum a few chords, if you don't overpress it, it's fine. These pickups are a bit funny, so understand that it's never going to sound, well, normal. I mean, I could play around all day with this. So let's just see if you hear anything, well, more strange than normal on the chords. I don't think particularly it's bad. And if you overpress, it's so easy. You get the idea, I'm sure you do. And you know, the thing about this neck, to me, playing a Strat neck like this, it's a bit highly tuned, or should I say, the strings are, you know, not light. Even though they're nines, they feel heavy to me compared to playing an Ibanez, for example. But if you come back down to the sort of heavy bits, which I suppose is what this guitar is about, but you'll know what I mean. I mean, the chords all seem to come out right. You get the idea. I'm not really hyper on chords, especially on a guitar it needs detuning by a semitone. Make it work. And you've got to watch that as well, because they do. Even though, as you can see, I set the guitar up right. So you get that. You don't want to do that, do you? Well, this one. As it happens, it tends to be pretty fine. Okay, well, on and up, and you'll find as you start to turn it up, obviously it gets, well, it does actually get easier to play, I think. But the sort of playing feel, well, it doesn't really change to me. It might to you. It doesn't really affect the playing, in my opinion. Maybe I don't press on as much as you, but I think I do, because this feels heavy, like I said, on the action. And so much for the sort of mid-tone. It's not any harder to play. Now I tend to do a bit of tapping in conjunction with the wah pedal, and that's a very important aspect, because I use the wah pedal effectively to sort of drive the channel. It's not that common a way of working with a wah, I don't think, but for me it works for tapping. It doesn't work, well, wah sounds nice anytime to me, but when you are tapping and you haven't got the wah on, it doesn't work right for me. It might work right for you, but you can get some very, very good tones and sounds from tapping if you use a wah. So if you get to see that, I think it does start to come into its own a little bit. So one of the reasons that I put this on related to tapping and a wah on a driven amp, which is what I tend to like.